Welcome back to Learning is the New Working. This is the first episode that we've recorded since the announcement of the coronavirus pandemic. It's the first episode since the January the 20th first case diagnosed in Seattle here in the US. And it's the first episode since 25% of the world's population, some 3 billion people in 70 countries, have gone into some form of lockdown, with the obvious profound effect on life, work life, and learning. We're experimenting, therefore, with a new season, or a new series of conversations, which we've called From What If to What Now. And our aim is to learn from and share the innovation, best practices, helpful ideas, useful resources, and information spawned by the abrupt shift in our work practices caused by the pandemic. And also to create a sense of community and connection in this suddenly isolated world. We'll check in with prior guests, and we'll also meet some new leaders and practitioners focused on responding to what Josh Bersin's called the Big Reset. Now, because we already have a backload of episodes that are scheduled to publish every 2 weeks, we're going to thread this new season in between and publish them on our off weeks. We'll respect your time, and we'll try to keep them short. And we'll try to make sure that the content is always useful and actionable. So let us know what you think, or share your own observations and learnings, or indeed your questions at our website, www.learningisthenewworking.org. The first guest is Kevin Oakes. Kevin is the CEO and founder of the Institute for Corporate Productivity, known as i4cp. It bills itself as a leading human capital research company, and Kevin is definitely a well-connected, long-time leader in the HR, learning, and learning technology community, here in the US, but also worldwide. Kevin's founded some really influential learning technology companies, including SumTotal Systems, Click to Learn, which he formed in a partnership with Paul Allen, and subsequently merged with Docent, as well as Oaks Interactive, his first company. He serves or has served on the boards of a host of amazing companies, including Edcast, Performative, Sanctuary, Workforce Insights, and Knowledge Advisors. He was the 2006 chairman and a 5-year board member of ATD, and he's written a number of books and articles and is an influential keynote speaker on using human capital strategically. In our conversations, we learn about i4cp. We talk about the critical role of HR and talent leaders in this current crisis. We talk about the resources that he and his organization has put together for everybody in response to the COVID-19 epidemic. And we talk about the innovation and best practices that he's seeing in real time from his community of talent leaders.
Kevin Oakes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Institute for Corporate Productivity. We shorten that to i4cp. And we do more research in the HR world or human capital world than anyone on the planet, always with a business lens of what are high-performing organizations doing differently with their people practices versus low-performing organizations.
Kevin, welcome to Learning is the New Working. It's great to have you on the show. I've meant to do this for a long time. And I should note that this is the first podcast recording I've done since the world changed pretty radically with the COVID-19 pandemic spreading around the world. And we all find ourselves in a very different world from prior episodes. So I want to thank you for your time in these strange times. And I want to explore some of what you're seeing is going on in the world from your perspective. So welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Good to be here.
And we always start with a few questions to get a sense of you and your work practice and your career history. So maybe I'm going to start, though, by saying, how are you and your family? How are you holding up through all this? Is everybody well, and is the team well?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Everybody is well. In the family, for sure. We've all adopted to being in the house together for several weeks now, but Everybody's healthy, which is the most important thing. And same is pretty much true for the company, although I do have one employee who has coronavirus.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she's doing fine. It's a very
Yeah.
mild case, and just talked to her this morning and did a video call with her. So, yeah, I think that's what's interesting about this virus is there's very varying degrees of how people get it. Hopefully, for her and her family, it just remains mild.
Yeah, great. Well, fingers crossed. I think we're all at that phase where we're all starting to know people who are impacted one way or the other, and it seems to be the next few weeks there's going to be more of that. Can you tell me, Kevin, what part of the world you live in and why?
Yeah, so I live in the former epicenter of coronavirus, which is the
Yeah.
Seattle area. Specifically, live in Medina, which is just outside of Seattle. It's interesting because I was in New York City for 2 weeks. Unbeknownst at the time that what was going to happen with New York. At the time, it was everybody was simply talking about it, but we hadn't had any cases in New York, or maybe just a couple had popped up. And so I left New York thinking I was coming into the epicenter, but not even realizing at the time I was leaving the epicenter. So, I'm thanking my
Yeah.
lucky stars that I'm healthy and everybody around me is healthy.
Cool. And you're a long time Seattleite, but I think the East Coast, I think of you associated with New York and the East Coast as well. What brought you to Seattle, and why do you hang out here?
So I've been in the Seattle area for 20 years now, exactly, and came out here originally because of Paul Allen. I had an e-learning company in the 90s outside of Boston called Oaks Interactive. We bootstrapped it to become a fairly sizable provider of custom e-learning. Even before we called it e-learning, we were doing CD-ROM-based, computer-based training, and eventually migrated to the web. At the time, Paul had a company. It was the first company he founded after Microsoft called Asymetrix, and he really wanted to IPO the company, but Asymetrix wasn't big enough. So he approached me and said, "Hey, if we combine our two companies, I think we'll be big enough to take this public." And so that's exactly what we did. We combined the companies. We took it public in '98, and I became CEO and chairman of the company and made the move out to Seattle.
And what is your job title now, Kevin, at i4cp? What do you do on a typical day running that company?
So I'm the co-founder and CEO of i4cp. We do more human capital research than anyone on the planet. And I guess I try to stay out of the way more than anything, Chris, and let my team operate. But we have a lot of fun. We work with a lot of very well-known companies, the largest companies in the world, typically working with the CHROs and the HR leadership teams of those organizations. We have a team of analysts that's researching all aspects of human capital. And we are always applying a business lens to it. So we're looking at what are high-performing organizations as measured by market share, revenue growth, profitability, et cetera. What are they doing differently with their people practices versus low-performing organizations? And while we uncover a lot of best practices of companies, what we're mostly interested in are next practices. And we define those as practices where we can see a very strong correlation to bottom line business impact, but not a lot of companies have yet implemented that particular practice. And so in any research study we do, we'll come out with several different next practices that we think organizations should pay attention to. And we're such big believers in that term next practice that we call our annual conference Next Practices Now, where we bring together all these HR leaders, hundreds of them, as well as CEOs of some of the companies we work with, thought leaders out in the industry, and it's a great collection of practitioners. And what we don't have there are any vendors or any consultants. So the practitioners love it because they're not being sold to while at the conference. It's really just a exploration of next practices in the field.
And what's the business model around i4cp? It's a membership organization, I believe, and do people pay for specific pieces of research? What's the sort of core business model?
Yeah, I joke all the time we're a SaaS company that doesn't create software. But it's a subscription model. So those companies subscribe on an annual basis to get access to the research we produce. But there's a lot more they get access to as well. We have one of the largest, probably the largest, closed peer networks in the HR field. So we have tens of thousands of HR practitioners who are part of this peer network. Again, no vendors, no consultants in that network. And so they're often sharing strategies, tools, asking questions, answering questions as part of that peer network. So collaboration is a big part of what we do. But then we have a number of other offshoot groups from the membership. So we run several title-based groups that we call boards, and those are focused on the top title in larger organizations. So, for example, we have a CHRO board. We have a Chief Learning and Talent Officer board. We have one for heads of diversity, heads of total rewards, heads of talent acquisition, and several others. And those boards are helping to drive a lot of our research agenda. They're meeting on a regular basis. And then we have other groups as well that are topic-based, and we call those exchanges, but we focus in on performance management or strategic workforce planning, or the latest one we have is employee experience, which has become a very big topic inside many companies. And so we've set up a separate exchange to explore that topic. So there's a lot of different things those companies are accessing from a membership perspective, but that gives you just a sense of some of them.
I mean, I think you shared you've had tremendous sort of growth around this. There's been, obviously, over the last couple of years, it's been a very tight market for employers in terms of talent, and there's been this incredible growth. Are you, well, let's say before this month, are you seeing innovation and more sort of hunger for sharing and learning these next practices?
Yeah, very much so. In fact, our business is growing over 30% year over year. So we have been experiencing some great growth. And obviously, before the world turned upside down in the last month, that growth was continuing. Although I'm very heartened to see that we, as an organization, have pivoted very well. We started covering the coronavirus back in late January, early February, when it was mainly thought of as just a China issue.
Yeah,
and we started surveying it then, and then in late February, early March, we really pivoted the whole company to helping organizations deal with this. And I feel like it played right into our strength. We are a convener of HR experts and executives. And so we felt like probably the best thing we can do is bring together all those folks in a variety of different ways so that they can innovate together and share the next practices that they're creating around how to deal with something that nobody had any contingency planning for anyway. And so we've done that. We, if you go out to our website, you'll see our Employer Resource Center, which has a variety of things. It has research that we've conducted, and we do almost daily research right now on coronavirus, but also a number of different calls that we're doing daily by function. So tomorrow I have a learning leaders call, for example, and we'll bring in different CLOs. I've got Rob Lauber from McDonald's, and
sure,
Kerry Williard from Visa, and Pam Matson from Amazon are going to be on the call, and we'll be talking about, how are you dealing with this new, this new reality that we have, and we're revealing some stats that we did on a pulse survey around user-generated content. I was curious to see if companies have done more user-generated content. And so that's just one of many, many calls that we do to bring those folks together. And then we have threaded discussion groups. And what I like the most is our next practice area. We're trying to highlight what are organizations doing during this crisis and how are they handling it. It runs from a variety of different aspects. What kind of benefits are you providing to learning? What are you doing to help take advantage of this new work from home environment that we find ourselves in?
I mean, this is a really human crisis, right? This is about people's lives, and I think it puts chief human resource officers and those of us in professions that relate to the humanity of businesses really kind of at the forefront of this. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,